What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Bill Mahari here to represent Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to my entire, subscribers and all the people in the basketball community, which includes my LDBC brothers too, as well, guys. But the nominations for the 2021 class for the Basketball Hall of Fame continues on, guys, and we got two more names on the list. But I'm gonna start, talking about this guy right here. Um, the breaking news coming out right now is now Bob Dandridge is now in the class at the 2021 Basketball Hall of Fame. That includes guys like Ben Wallace, Paul Pierce, Chris Webber, um, Tony Kukoc, which I'm going to do a video about him later on, and now Bob Dandridge. And this has been a long time coming for Mr. Bob Dandridge, who in his time was perhaps one of the best forwards, best small forwards, during his time in the NBA. Obviously born from Richmond, Virginia, and coming from Norfolk State University. What I mean? He actually teamed up playing with the legendary Pee Wee Kirkland, and they basically won the CIAA title in 1968 with a 25-2 record. You know what I mean? And then also competed in the NCAA two tournament, actually the NCAA Division two tournament, where they were basically lost in the second round. And after his college career was over with, he was drafted by the Kentucky Colonels in the 1969 ABA draft, and then he was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks in the fourth round of the '69 NBA draft. When you look at Bob Dandridge's career and learn about his game per se, you can pretty much say that he was the reincarnation of what you see with Kawhi Leonard even today. Um, Standing basically at 6'6" and 195 pounds. Bob Dandridge was the master of the mid-range game. He was the master of utilizing the mid-range game. He utilized the mid-range games effectively against smaller opponents, and then against bigger guys, he was able to blow by them, and get to the basket or just pull up for the mid-range jump shot. And he basically scored over 15,000 points in his career and spent his career playing, with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Washington Bullets. Um, his draft pick was the key to the Milwaukee Bucks winning the championship in 1971. Not just with the arrival of Kareem, but also the addition of Oscar Robertson. But it gave the Bucks another scoring option that the teams had to really focus on, and that they just couldn't just solely focus on Oscar Robertson and Kareem, and that Bob Dandridge was another threat on the floor that people had to be careful of. When he basically burst onto the scene, um, he was quite the surprise as he pretty much rose to prominence with those two great Hall of Famers. Um, in the first two finals appearances with the Bucks, in which they won in '71 and narrowly lost in '74 against the Boston Celtics, he was pretty much the third option, in which was devastating for teams who were focusing on both stopping Kareem and the Big O. And what Kareem pretty much said about, at least about a couple of years ago, he said Bob made it very difficult for our opponents to guard because of his quickness. He could hit the open mid-range jump shot, and he was a very good defensive player. And his defense was pretty much the key because he was a phenomenal defensive player and made defensive first team and defensive all rookie team in his rookie season. He was a four-time NBA All Star, and he was pretty much one of the big catalysts for that Milwaukee Bucks team. During the seasons where he played in Milwaukee, he averaged about 19 to 20 points per game and shot at least 45 to 50% from the field. But the big thing about Dandridge was is that he had a rocky relationship, with management. Um, you know, the problem with Bob Dandridge was is that he was a bit outspoken, and his relationship with the Bucks organization later on in his career was pretty much strained, and it played into a big role into one of the big reasons why he was pretty much traded to the Bucks. Um, he admitted that he was a bit outspoken, and there were times that he was not that he was expected not to say anything that I spoke up on. But when you look back at during that time, to people that the people that he talked with the NBA Players Union, they all pretty much admitted that he was pretty much ahead of their time in terms of speaking up in terms of players' rights, what players should be making, and what kind of power that the NBA that the players should have, instead of always exclusively the ownership always making the decisions for them. You know what I mean? And pretty much at that time, he was getting deteriorated. He was getting, frustrated with the Bucks organization, and you know, he was never traded, but he wanted to be traded. But then after he became a free agent after 77, he pretty much signed with the Baltimore Bullets. And should say it was the Washington Bullets. And the expectation when he came in to the team was it created a big three on the front court with the late great Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes. And on the second day of training camp, he twisted his ankle, and Wes Unseld walked past him and pretty much said to him, "Oh, you're supposed to be the savior, and you hurt already." And that's when he realized that these guys were looking to win a championship. Knowing that he had gone from being the third option in Milwaukee to now being the primary offensive weapon in Washington, he pretty much took the opportunity, and he pretty much delivered. In the '78 playoffs, he helped ousted Julius Erving and the reigning Eastern Conference champion Philadelphia 76ers in a tough series, and then won a bruising 7 game on the road against the Seattle Supersonics to win the NBA championship. And that was pretty much redemption for the loss in '75 when the Bullets got swept by the Golden State Warriors. You know what I mean? Um, Unfortunately, injuries to his knees and back really much derailed his career. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact of how he wasn't able to score at least, 20,000 points throughout his career, because he ended his career scoring at least 15,530 points. But the most interesting thing is that he actually scored more points in the 1970s in the NBA Finals than any other player. He actually scored 450 points in 4 NBA Finals that he played with, playing a total of at least 23 games. That's more than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and garnering over 19 points per game, and most notably scoring 109 points in the '79 finals, in which they lost to the Seattle Supersonics in the infamous rematch. And so what I'm trying to tell y'all is that this guy was pretty much a player that is you see today with Kawhi Leonard in terms of his ability using the mid-range game, using the pull-up game, but also, he was very much a tenacious defender too as well. And so I'm very happy that he was able to get into the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately for me, I never grew up in the '70s, so I didn't really see much of his game other than some, YouTube clips. But definitely, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and definitely it was a long time coming for him, because without, the presence of Bob Dandridge, especially for those Bucks teams during the '70s, they would not have won the championship in 1971, and Oscar Robertson would still be ringless, and I don't think Kareem would have lasted in Milwaukee that long without the presence of Bob Dandridge on the team. Because without Bob Dandridge on their team, like I said, teams could basically focus in on both the Big O and Kareem. And so they were pretty much a big three ahead of. They were basically a young, up and coming big three that was basically in their peak at the time before there was a definition of a big three. And it also was the lead role in another big three in terms of a dominant front line with the Bullets team that won the title back in 1978. And so he was pretty much responsible for helping two of those franchises finally get their championship dues. I mean, for the Bucks becoming the quickest, expansion franchise to win a championship, and then also helping the Bulls overcome the difficult, memories of that painful time when they got swept by the Warriors in '75 to pretty much redeem themselves and win the title in 1978. And so, at the end of the day, man, Bob Dandridge, had career totals of 18 and a half points per game, and also 1.3 steals per game, 3.4 assists per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, and shot 78% from the foul line, and also 48% from the field. Very solid and very, outstanding numbers for his career. And like I told you guys in my Weber video, you know, the thing that people need to stop misconstruing is that sometimes the stats don't always the entire story. They only tell parts of it. If you didn't watch the games, and if you weren't, what reading of how these players, what they say about how great that these players were, how important they were in terms of the winning environment, in terms of their championship, expectations, then you really are missing out on what basketball is all about. And so the other thing too is that Bob Dandridge, right now, he's not getting any younger. He's 73 years old, and the thing that I've always had an issue with the Hall of Fame is that they've always put in guys in the Hall of Fame when they pass away. You know what I mean? And I've seen that sometimes with baseball and sometimes with football as well. They leave guys intentionally out of the Hall of Fame for a long time, but until they're dead, then they get the sympathy vote of getting in, and which I have a huge problem with that. But Paul Westphal got into the Hall of Fame, in 2019, and ends up dying of cancer. And so, you know, this is one of those things where you have to treasure these moments with these people, because being in the Hall of Fame for them, of all the things they accomplished in their careers, it means a lot to them. And so, Bob Dandridge even talked about it 8 years ago that he believed that he accomplished a lot of in his career, and his numbers and what he did during his time was enough to get him into the Hall of Fame. But if he didn't get in, he wasn't going to sweat, you know, not going in, and no, and he would accept the fact that, listen, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But this is his time to finally celebrate and finally, rejoice the moment of being into the Hall of Fame. And I can't wait to see what all of these participants in the Hall of Fame are going to pretty much say when the induction for the 2021 class happens on September the 11th. You know what I mean? And kind of ironic is that too. But the point is, though, congratulations to Bob Dandridge. You finally got into the Hall of Fame after waiting so long to get in. You know what I mean? It took at least about 4 decades, 4 to 5 decades to get you into the Hall of Fame. But finally, you're able to celebrate and enjoy the moment. You know what I mean? Now your name is cemented in history, and you know what I'm saying? And you finally get to celebrate your accomplishments. So congratulations to Bob Dandridge. He's now in the class of the 2021 Hall of Fame. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And with that, I'm out. Peace.